Welcome back to the Pop of the Man podcast. I'm your host, Jay. With me today, I have your favorite Suns fan. I got Cam with me. What's up, Cam?
Y'all already know what it is, Suns Nation. I'm in the house today.
And then we have your maybe top 20 favorite Celtics fan. We have Brandon with us. What up, Brandon?
What's going on? Top 20. All right, I'll take that.
You know, right behind Bill Simmons at 19, 20. You know what we
That's
do?
Unfortunate.
You know what we do? We give our takes on basketball, music, everything in between. On this episode, we'll be talking about just basketball. We'll be covering some of the games that transpired on Thursday. So we'll be talking about like Lakers, Clippers, the Grizzly and Trailblazers game, about a couple of more games that happened. So, but before we get talking about the games, I think Cam had a question he wanted to ask us first.
So what the question that I want to propose pertains to the Lakers, but I was gonna ask once we got started. But the question I have for y'all is, can y'all name me y'all's top 5 players in the NBA right now?
Top 5 players currently in the NBA. In terms of players who go ahead again. What you about to say, Brandon?
So my question is, are you just talking about this season in general, like you've had to play this season?
Okay, so I was thinking that let's say playing this season. Let's say playing this season.
So we talking about playing this season. I'm gonna go Kawhi, LeBron. I think I'm gonna go. Who am I gonna go for my third? I think I'm gonna go Giannis. Then I'm gonna go Harden, and I think I will go AD.
Okay.
I think that'll be my top 5.
Okay, Brandon.
Was that your order?
Yeah, that's my order too.
Okay.
Ooh, I don't know if I have an order.
Yeah, and order really isn't important.
Yeah, I honestly probably the same. I don't think there's another player, because I would say Harden is 5th right now, and I'm not maybe AD or Harden. Change from Florida, but the top 3 I think are Bron, Kawhi, Giannis, and that's interchangeable. And I think Harden and AD would be 4 and 5.
The only players with the talent to upset those rankings would be Curry and KD, who both didn't play this season. Nobody else really is in their tier this season.
And they would absolutely take over top 5 for Harden and
for sure.
Definitely push out AD for me. Harden still might be there. I think he'd be 5 for me. I think I put I might put Giannis at 6. But so I propose
that question to say, which I think is really amazing, especially when we're dealing with the media and commentators in general. It's amazing how every time Anthony Davis is brought up and the Lakers are brought up, it's always the Lakers have 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA. When easily y'all said that if Steph and KD were playing, that AD would not be a top. Both of y'all consensus said that AD wouldn't be a top 5 player, and I think it's just amazing how we built this narrative that. I mean, not discounting AD as a great player at all, but we built this narrative that AD is like easily top 5, like especially in the media. AD is easily a top 5 player. When we look around, and I think that narrative comes for 2 reasons. One, because we look at the greatness of the player that LeBron is, and we like, all right, easily LeBron, if he's not a top 5, he can elevate him to play like a top 5 player. And also, I think another part of that comes from the fact that we like to put pressure on LeBron. And so by saying that, LeBron has another top 5 player, we're like, okay, well, if he doesn't win, it's obviously his fault because he doesn't have another top 5 player. But I just think that's really interesting because every time I hear a commentator talk about the Lakers, they have 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA. And I'm thinking like, yeah, depends on the night and depends on who else is playing in the league. So I don't know, because I mean, the way Paul George's been playing, I could say he's a top 5 player on a given night.
Hey, on a given night he can be there, but I wouldn't say there consistently. I would say that's a nice little theory, but I'm not going to subscribe to it. I know this much from just listening to I think it's Lakers exceptionalism. Not even Lakers exceptionalism. I remember it was 82nd or 3rd year in the league, and the ESPN does their top 100 players in the league. And I could have sworn I remember AD being 3rd or 4th on that list behind only LeBron and KD, and that was his 3rd or 4th season of the year. like people have been wanting to crown AD as an MVP like player, one of the best players in the league for a long time, and now he's a Laker. He just has that giant following behind him to actually put it into effect. Because there's been a lot of people this season that said like, hey, if you put, I think it was it Clutch? What's the dude from Clutch name? That's on LeBron's homie. Was it him that said? Rich Paul said that if you replace AD with Giannis on the Bucks, that it'll be the same result.
I remember that. I remember that.
Like he said that, and people went with it. And a lot of people feel like AD is just as good as Giannis. If not, they'll take AD over Giannis. I've had a couple of people tell me that on Twitter and in person, they'd rather have AD. Yeah. Like I said,
that's all over Twitter.
Great player. If you replace Giannis with AD, you still have a very, very, very good player. But
for sure.
I think Giannis is still better. So I would say that the reason you're hearing that is because people really believe it. Me and Brandon's a little bit smarter. That's all it is than the average.
No, I agree with that to an extent, but I also feel like if we're talking about the season, who else would even like you said, Paul George? Right. I can't buy into that.
No.
I think he's consistent.
I was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty much it. I just don't think he's consistent enough to be in a top 5 discussion because I look at it in like totality. So I'll look at Paul George in the regular season where he had an MVP kind of year in OKC, and then watch him in the playoffs and nothing really happened for him. And that's where Harden kind of differs from me. And I think Kawhi and LeBron are 1 and 2. I don't think there's really any question about that. When you put KD and Steph Curry into the equation for next year, then we're going to have discussions on what's 1 through 4, and then 5 will be Giannis or maybe Harden. But
wow,
I think the only reason AD is a top 5 player now is because 2 of the best players in the league didn't play or barely played. So
it's interesting that you dropped Giannis so far with those 2 coming back, but that's another discussion for another day. We don't have to continue. I'm about to say one have to continue that.
Yeah. So talking about PG, him and Kawhi faced off against the Lakers on opening night in a very highly contested game. These games are always stressed, guys. I was drinking a glass of wine while I was watching this game. It had me lose my mind with all the fouls that happened in the first inning, and AD getting like 17 free throws, and the Clippers seemingly not stopping fouling, even though they see that he's getting free throws. And just all those tight contests went down to the wire where LeBron got a stop on Kawhi and PG to close out the win after getting the bucket that put them ahead by 2 points. I want to ask you guys what your biggest takeaways from this game. I mean, for me, I'm just going to say for me, Lou and Trez didn't play, so it can't really say much about this game in the grand scheme of things. But I just looked at certain things that will probably be prevalent in the next matchup. One is Paul George is healthy, finally.
Yeah.
He spoke that 4-month layover gave him time to get 100% confident in his shoulders as well as his hamstring that was bothering him all season. Hence, that's what kept him from being a top 5 player this year, because he was dealing with so many nagging injuries and recovering from that surgery. But now he's lighting it up. In that game against the Lakers, Paul George had 30 points. He shot 11 for 17 and shot 6-11 from 3. He was on fire. So for me, my biggest takeaway from that game is Paul George is healthy. Paul George is being himself from the OKC year, and hopefully that carries over into the other games. What was y'all biggest takeaways from watching the Battle of LA?
I'll let you go, Brandon.
All right. My biggest takeaway from that game, Doc Rivers really is sometimes a horrible coach. I mean, I've watched him coach most of my Celtics fan life, right? There are moments where you're just like, why are you doing this? What kind of sense does this make, putting this lineup out? At the end of the third, he put out a lineup. I think it was Reggie Jackson, Landry Shamet,
JaMychal Green,
Joakim Noah, Patrick Patterson, and some guy named Amir Coffey. I don't know who that is.
Yes, he's from a G League, but that's what the lineup was. It was them 5, and I believe the Clippers had an 11-point lead going into the end of third. This is the first time he took Kawhi and PG off the floor, and in those few minutes that those two off the floor, AD stayed on the court and lit it up from three, hit like 2-3 threes in that span, completely erased the lead and got the Lakers back in the game, which then gave the Lakers the chance to take over the game going forward.
Yeah. Now, my thing is, okay, so that happened, and it's a close game. It's been a close game all game. So you want to give Paul George and Kawhi time off, especially because I think Paul George was in foul trouble at that point. He had like 4 fouls in the third. Yes. So I get that, whatever. You've been watching Reggie Jackson this entire game do nothing. I mean, he can't hit a layup. He can't make a pass. He's letting Alex Caruso just get right by him on every play. Like, it's like, okay, so Reggie Jackson should be sitting out. Pat Bev is hitting threes in the fourth quarter. He's bringing this team back to a lead, and then Doc Rivers sits him again. Now, I'm not sure if he's hurt. Maybe that's why.
So, but the reasoning behind it, they said, was because Patrick Beverley had just gotten to the bubble that day before, so he hadn't practiced with the team. So Doc put him on a minutes restriction because he technically hasn't practiced or played any real basketball. So with that being said, you still want to close with your best player. So we're going to talk about this when we talk about Zion, how they're playing him in bursts. And then, like Alvin Gentry said that, we would have liked to have had Zion to close the fourth, but we already used up all his minutes. Well, as a good coach, you should manage your minutes so that your best player is available for you to play in the closing minutes. So that's why Patrick Beverley wasn't in that moment. But like towards the end of the game, like I said, they had Landry Shamet and they had what's his name? Not Rodney Jackson. I don't know what the word I'm thinking. Reggie Jackson on the court at the same time, and I'm like, they had guards who played better than them that game. I don't understand why they're out there right over them. But yeah, Doc does these nonsensical lineup changes that don't really make sense, and I don't know if he's playing possum and just doing these things so he don't show his full hand. Because I'm thinking to myself, well, he could have put Marcus Morris out there with that lineup and gave them somebody who can go get a bucket on their own. Granted, he went 0 for 4 in that game, but still, like, that's the perfect time to have him on the court. If PG and Kawhi aren't on the court, well then, and Lou Will and Trez aren't there, then put Marcus Morris out there. He a certified scorer. Put him out there, but he didn't. And that's what cost him the game. So hopefully Doc is just playing around and didn't really care about winning the game because there's so many things he could have done, obvious things he could have done to win that game. But
the thing is like, if Reggie Jackson was hitting shots in the first half,
that
would make sense. He didn't make anything. Like, he had a horrible percentage. What purpose did that serve? He's not a good defender. He's not a good offensive player when he's not doing reverse layups. Like, what's the point of him being in the game? I don't get it. It made no sense. So I will say, like if you're a Clippers player or fan, you got to be a little encouraged because, I mean, AD did go to the line 20 times. LeBron was playing great defense, and you still only lost by 2 with 2 of your most important players out. Now, those guys aren't particularly great on defense either, but I think that offense is going to win those games. I because
these are 2 very good defensive teams.
There's who in really when it comes to crunch time is going to stop 4 of the top 10 players when they're on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's going to be whoever is on fire offensively. Like, Kawhi's not going to stop LeBron if LeBron's on fire. LeBron's not going to stop Kawhi if Kawhi's on fire. Like, that's not going to matter. So I would feel a little more confident about it as a Clippers fan, I guess. Especially because they were turning the ball over like crazy. I mean,
we turned the ball over 22 times in that game. It was very discouraging. But I'm going to say this. I kind of already went to the game thinking we were going to lose for the simple fact we have Lou and Trez. But, it sucked that we lost because we had a chance to win. But like you said, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things to look at for the Clippers and think back like, okay, this is our first game. There's a lot of things we can improve upon and easy things to fix and, go into the next game. But Cam, what was your biggest takeaway from this game between the Lakers and the Clippers?
Before I give it, I think it's interesting because every time we've had one of these 4 games this season, the biggest thing that we say is, if this happens, then this team will win. And if this happens, then this team will win. And it seems like we never have the same scenario each time. Like, one time you'll have LeBron going for a 30-point triple-double, and then you'll have Kawhi, having 30 in a great defensive game. And this game, LeBron's playing defense like ridiculously. So, I mean, I would take away as one of my biggest takeaways is 2 things. Is that looks like if LeBron isn't having a good game, and just in general, looks like LeBron's playing defense right now, which is fantastic. I don't know how long this lasts, and I don't know how long we can keep this up. But I'm positive. Like, I'm feeling positive as a Lakers fan, if I am a Lakers fan. because LeBron didn't have a great game at all.
No.
And AD, he definitely had a great game, but it's crazy that we were able to see LeBron not have a great game, and also really didn't have anybody else other than AD have a great game, and you still were able to win. So I mean, I'm positive after this game, but I'm still concerned if I'm a Lakers fan because those wild cards off the bench, you never know what's gonna get. Kuzma's been seeming a little consistent ever since the bubble started, but who knows how long that lasts. And then we look at Dion Waiters may have a good game. He's been oddly fun to watch.
Yes.
But Dion Waiters, we never know what we're gonna get from him. But I mean, I'm feeling positive either way it goes for each fan bases. I just think it's gonna come down to situational basketball and all the games, and if these teams do face in the playoffs.
I tell you what, like watching Dion Waiters is a joy. He's a lot of fun. I mean, that don't mean he don't mean he's doing what he's supposed to do. He just fun to watch out there on the court. But with that being said, Kyle Kuzma did have a good game. He shot 4 for 8, went 4 for 7 from 3. He played some pretty good defense on a couple possessions on PG. I remember him forcing turnovers out of bounds, swatting the ball out of bounds, and played a couple of good possessions on Kawhi in that second half. So those are things that, Kyle Kuzma's improvement, those things you can monitor and take away from this game going forward. One trend that seems to be continuing with LeBron is he has been playing bad against the Clippers, except for that one game where they actually won back in March before the season ended. Like this game, LeBron shot 6 for 19, so he shot 31% from the field, 28% from 3. He was having a hard time getting to the rim, getting around Kawhi or PG all game long. And so I think for the season, he's shooting below 40% against the Clippers. So I feel like that's something that's very abnormal for him, and I feel like that's not something that's isolated. Like the fact that we see this trend over 4 games means that Bron might have an issue with those guys going forward, and I think that's something else you could take away from this game, or something that at least we should monitor going into the playoffs.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is the Lakers are going to go as far as AD takes them in that series.
Yep.
Because we all know LeBron's great, and he could do things outside of scoring. So, like, that's never – like, he's never going to be just out there doing nothing. Like, he's going to make the great passes. He's going to try hard on defense because he has to with Kawhi there. But AD is going to be the factor, like, the biggest factor in, winning against the Clippers in like, whatever series, whenever that happens. Because it's going to happen, of course.
Facts.
Yeah. So, I think AD is going to be the reason why the Lakers either – go to the finals or fall to the Western Conference Finals.
I will say this: while I do not have AD higher on my MVP ladder than LeBron, I will say he looked very much like the MVP in that game against the Clippers last night. He showed out. So I want to talk to you guys about another game that came on. It was the next day, and this was the game between the Trailblazers and the Grizzlies. I don't know why I keep forgetting the Grizzlies' name. But essentially, they went to overtime. The score was 140 to 135. The Trailblazers came out on top. And like I said, this game had massive playoff implications. And it felt like a playoff game because, the Trailblazers are on the hunt for the 9th seed, or to keep the 9th seed so that they can do the play-in tournament against the Grizzlies, who is the 8th seed. And by winning this game, they put them in the position where they could possibly steal the 8th seed in the 8th seed position for the play-in tournament, which would be a lot more beneficial for them. What do you guys feel about this matchup in terms of what y'all saw in this game, and in terms of what y'all think these two teams will look like if they face against each other in the play-in tournament?
All right, so I'll say this: it's crazy because my brother is a Memphis Grizzlies fan. Like we grew up in Memphis. He's been a Grizzlies fan since we were kids. I've always hated the Grizzlies, probably just because he liked them. But I watched him watch the game, and that is the most frustrated I've ever seen him because he's happy for like 2 minutes, then he's mad for the other 2 minutes. But I mean, it's just amazing because if you watch me and him, we stayed and watched the game. If you watch the game, you obviously noticed that Damian Lillard was not trying to be the aggressive offensive player in that game. It was obvious that it was CJ McCollum.
Yeah, CJ McCollum pushing the issue.
Yeah, Yeah, like Damian Lillard stayed back and like every time this is what he was doing every position. Like he was getting the ball, kicking it off to CJ, and if he actually kept it, he was driving to the goal. If the defense collapsed, he was kicking it out. If the defense didn't collapse, he was getting like an easy layup. I don't know what was going on with the Grizzlies' interior defense that game, but it was like he was getting easy layups at the goal every time if they didn't collapse. I don't know how he was getting to the goal so easily, but it was just amazing to see that even with it, because Damian Lillard got hurt in the fourth quarter and he ended up coming back, and that's when I feel like he took his foot off the gas. But it was amazing to see how even though Damian Lillard was not 100%, they were still able to beat the Grizzlies, and CJ McCollum was able to be Superman and overcome a lot of the stuff.
CJ McCollum went crazy. He shot 14 for 21 from the field, and he shot 3 of 6 from 3. He ended up with a stat line of 33 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds. Just phenomenal hard shot making from him. Just off the dribble, mid-range jumper, off the dribble, 3-point shots, driving hard to the rim, finishing. Both teams could have played a lot better defense for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll say one. Other than CJ, to further compliment the Trailblazers, 2 players that shown to me were Melo, who seems to be very comfortable in his role with the Trailblazers. I will say I was a skeptic in his fit with that team, knowing that he needs to dribble the ball a lot. But a lot of times he caught the ball in stride and she took the 3 and made some very clutch threes in that fourth quarter. Matter of fact, they get them back, tie the game up, send them into overtime. And he also had a couple plays where he caught the ball in isolations, 1-2 steps, took the shot, and nailed it. I really like what he did in the Florida game, and most important, I like what Zach Collins and Joseph Nurkic brought to the Trailblazers. Was a real difference maker, blocking shots, deterring shots, and keeping Ja Morant, who shot I think only 31% in this game. And so that was the key to shutting down the Grizzlies, or at least handicapping them, was keeping Ja Morant out the paint and forcing him to take shots. That was the difference maker for them. Brandon, how'd you feel about this matchup? Like, if these 2 teams were to meet in the play-in tournament, and let's say the Blazers are still the 9th seed, do you believe in the Blazers' ability to beat this team 2 times?
Now, my question to this is, I don't really know how this 8th seed thing works. Is there a tournament and then the playoffs? So
the way it is if the 9th seed is within 4 games, which I thought was pretty big. I think that's too big, honestly. It should have made within 4.
Is it 3.5? I thought it was 3.
It's within 4.
It might be 4.
It's within 4, but the Blazers, Pelicans, and Spurs were already 3.5 games, so they were already in. But if you're within 4 games and you're the 9th seed, you will play the 8th seed. And if the 8th seed wins, that's it. The 8th seed get to keep their spot. Now, if the 9th seed wins, they have to play the 8th seed a second time. And if the 9th seed wins the second time, then they get the 8th seed. So basically, the 9th seed has to win 2 games in a row. The 8th seed only has to win 1 game. And whoever reaches that is the one that gets the 8th seed.
Well, my thing is I can see the Blazers let's see. Actually, they are kind of far away. Yeah, I would pick the Blazers over the Grizzlies just for experience purposes. I think CJ McCollum in big moments, I feel like comes up a little bigger than Dame, besides the OKC series, because I think CJ's game is a little bit more sustainable for playoff time. And I love their depth. I mean,
it's crazy.
You have to play Hassan Whiteside that much. You play him 15 to 20 minutes, let him do his thing, get rebounds, blah, 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 blah. But you have Melo, as your 3rd scorer. You have Nurkic, who, by the way, looked really good for having a whole year off on a broken leg. I was kind of blown away by that. And then Zach Collins, a pretty solid player. Gary Trent Jr. is really good. Mario Ozoni is a pretty compliment. So they're not good defensively. But the Grizzlies are just, in my opinion, they're not. I don't think they're experienced enough to. And even if, really, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter who gets this 8th seed because they're going to get knocked out in 5 to the Lakers. But still, it's going to be a cool matchup to see, because that's probably going to be the 2 teams that are battling for it, because the Pelicans clearly don't give too much of a shit to play. So, I think this would go to 2 games. I think the Blazers win that first one, and then the second one, it's going to go down to the wire, because Ja Morant's
a warrior. He's a warrior, man.
He's a warrior. Even when he played, he didn't shoot that well. Really at all. But he was still in it. I mean, he was still doing things that, you know, as a rookie point guard, you're kind of shocked that you can do. So
Yeah.
I think that I was gonna say I'm willing to bet that the Trailblazers get the 9th seed. They will challenge the Grizzlies for the 8th seed, and they will beat them 2 times in a row. The fact that the Grizzlies defense has been pretty bad all year. Same thing with the Blazers. The Blazers' main problem with defense was they were missing Nurkic and had to rely on Whiteside to sustain their defense. I feel like the Grizzlies are also hurting because of the trades they had, where got rid of Solomon Hill and Jay Crowder, who are good wing defenders for them. And now the only really good wing defender they have at their disposal now is Dylan Brooks, who's still very young and inexperienced. And so we're betting on Dylan Brooks to be able to stop or slow down CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. That tandem. That's not going to cut it. And so that's why I'm willing to put my chips all in on the Blazers. Cam, what were you about to say?
Oh man, I was just gonna go against what you guys say. I was just gonna say the only thing that scares me the most if I'm a Blazers fan is that having to win 2 times in a row. Like,
yes,
the fact that you have to win 2 times in a row, like, not that it's best of 3, not that it's, you know, a real series. You literally have to win 2 times in a row. I can see the Grizzlies like just having, like, Jaren Jackson had a hot night. The Grizzlies were not supposed to lose that game. Like, I could see somebody on the Grizzlies having a hot night, and I could realistically see them just like easily winning, like not easily necessarily, but winning 1 game just off the strength of somebody being hot and Trailblazers not playing defense and them winning. I could see them winning. So that would scare me. But as a whole, I mean, I think the Trailblazers probably are a better team right now, but I would still pick the Grizzlies just off the fact that they only would have to win 1.
This situation of having to win 2 games in a row also benefits the Blazers that they're in the bubble and they don't have to play 2 games on the road and beat the Grizzlies. So if this is like the normal setup and they're in Memphis and you have to beat them twice in Memphis in a row to steal the spot, I'll probably be a little bit more skeptical. But since their home court advantage has been erased, I'm not as worried as I was before. You know, if I would have been under normal circumstances. With that being said,
I will say this though, Jaren Jackson, he's a beast. I mean, this guy does not get. I know we do this thing where like when he's underrated, but like this guy does not get enough attention. Like this guy could shoot the 3, he could play defense. Like he's going to be a huge compliment with John Morant for the rest of their careers because like he is just insane. I mean, it looks awful too. It doesn't make any sense. His shot just looks weird, but it goes.
It's an ugly shot.
He's cash. So I could see your point. Memphis actually ending up doing really well and winning that 1 game. So
yeah,
I'm rooting for either team. I love Memphis. So
he had one of the better games I've seen from him in a while, Jaren Jackson Jr. That is, and the thing is, he's just mostly inconsistent, mostly because he's young. He commits a lot of dumb fouls in the defensive end. But can be a very good defensive player. He isn't there all the way, but I feel like he can be a very good complement to Ja in the future. But only time will tell. Okay. So the next game I want to talk to you guys about is the matchup between the Bucks and the Celtics. The Bucks end up coming out on top. It was 119 to 112 in regulation. I think it was a pretty good game. At least a pretty good game to watch. At least from my perspective, you know, it was Brandon being a Celtics fan, he might not have felt that way. But Brandon, I know you said you had some words for Giannis and the Bucks. Tell me, how did you feel about watching this game?
I'm going to try to be as nice as I possibly can.
Please. Nicer than Marcus Smart.
We give Harden a lot of shit for, you know, getting the foul calls and all that shit. Giannis just gets just as much.
Yeah.
Maybe more, honestly. Now, don't get me wrong, Giannis dominated us all night. There's no question, right? We shouldn't have even been in that game to begin with because we were down 17-2. The fact that Marcus Smart led us to, you know, the game we had, I'm not mad at it. My issue is Giannis should have fouled out twice, 2 times in a row, and he didn't get fouled out. The first one, and I missed it a little bit. My friend told me, and I saw the highlight, but like I missed it real time. Him hitting Theis or kicking Theis in the area. And it was weird because they said it was going to be a flagrant, but they never gave him a foul or anything like that. I forget how it went, but he should have fouled out there. And then the next drive down, I think, he had an offensive charge call, which was clearly an offensive charge. Marcus Smart had his feet set. He got hit to the ground. He was outside of the circle or the whatever that area.
The restricted area.
And they overturned it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, Middleton hits a 3, and then that's it, because Middleton loves to kick the dog shit out of us. It's awful. But yeah, Giannis gets a lot of foul calls, and I think if he was rightfully out that game, we would have won that game. But I'm also not too mad, because there's not going to be too many games where Tatum is going to shoot 2 of 18. That was disgusting to watch, and I'm glad he cut his hair, because he needs buckets, and that was terrible. But I still feel very confident going into the next couple games, because we had a lot of guys do a lot of good things. Hayward, Tice, was getting rebounds. He couldn't stop Giannis, but not many people can, so I can't really knock him for that. Jaylen Brown started finding his groove in the third quarter. Kemba Walker finally looks like he's healthy, and Marcus Smart somehow went off like this. So I'm not terribly mad, but also watching in real time, I wanted to, throw a bat through a TV. So
I would say, to your point about Giannis and his free throw drawing ability, Harden leads the league in free throw attempts at 11.9 attempts a game. Giannis is number 2 with 10 attempts a game. And just to round out the list, Trey is 3rd with 9 attempts. Butler's 4th with 9 attempts, and Luka Doncic is 9 with he's 5th with 9 attempts. I thought it was pretty interesting that Luka and Trey are both in the top 5 as like sophomore players at drawing fouls. That's an incredible art to be able to master at such a young age. Usually players that young don't get that many foul calls. LeBron right now don't get that many foul calls, but Giannis' ability to get fouls, I think it gets looked over for the simple fact that he's a lot bigger than Harden. We see Harden purposely grapple somebody and then drag him to the rim and then throw his arms and not actually attempt a shot. And I think that's why people really give Harden his problems, because for instance, like AD shot 17 free throws in a game, and nobody's saying, "Oh, AD's ruining basketball." So I think your biggest beef, Brandon, and I think most people's biggest beef with with Giannis officiating is more so with the refs. They just choose to officiate him that way. Like I think like early on the first half, they was calling like every little foul, and that's why Giannis picked up all those fouls. And then they realized that, oh, we gave Giannis 5 fouls. We can't let him foul out. So then they have to pick and choose when to say he
got to hold the whistle.
Yeah, they try to hold the whistle because they realized they gave him too many fouls in the first half. Because I feel like they did the same thing in the Lakers game where they just gave out a shit ton of fouls. And then the second half, and especially the fourth quarter, they weren't calling fouls on Kawhi or PG.
Yeah.
Like there was lots they were whacking LeBron a couple of times, and LeBron didn't get anything. And I was kind of surprised. So I realized they're going to want to foul him out. That's why they're doing this.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, if you're going to call so many fouls like this, you got to be consistent throughout the game. If you're going to call fouls, call the fouls. If you're not, then let them play, and that's fine. I don't really care. But the inconsistency and them knowing, we can't have Giannis foul out the first game of the season for him, it was a little weird. But again, I mean, I still feel somewhat confident, but also the Bucks are a terror. Like, they are very good. Eric Bledsoe and Pat Connaughton were not in this game, and we still lost. So it's like, I feel good going in because, like, Tatum's not going to shoot that badly. But again, like, the Bucks have more weapons to come, and it's like, it's weird.
No, it's going to be a formidable challenge. I had the Celtics around midseason, I think around the time where Tatum started to emerge as a legit number 1 guy. So this is all depending on him becoming that guy again. But once he became that guy, I said that I believe I have Celtics, Bucks, Eastern Conference Finals. I think that'll be the matchup off the strength of what Tatum's was giving us and what Brown has become, and how helpful Kemba Walker will be for both of them on the offensive end. So the Houston Rockets defeated the Mavericks, and this went over to overtime, right? This went to overtime. Yeah, 153 to 149, an insane amount of scoring. And the same amount of not playing defense.
Yeah.
So those are some crazy stat lines with Harden putting up 49, 8, and 9 on 70% shooting from the field. He still shot 21 free throws, so He still got those in. Kristaps Porzingis had probably one of his best games since getting injured. He had 39 points, 16 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, and he shot 50% from the field, 3 of 8 from 3. This was a high-scoring game between two Texas powerhouses. Cam, what was your biggest takeaway after watching this game?
All right, so this game held extra sentimental value for me because I have gotten into sports betting. And I made a parlay bet on every game on Friday and got every single game right and was down to that game for my final bet. And it was like, let's just say it was a nice amount of money that I would have won had I gotten the game right.
Okay.
So I was watching the game and I was like, and I had to leave the house at the end of the game and I had somewhere to be on that Friday night. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna leave. I wasn't watching most of the game anyway. I was like getting ready to go where I was getting ready to go. And I was like, man, the Mavs got this. They're up 5. They're up 5 with a minute. They're up 5 with like 20 seconds left. I was like, there's no way they can lose this game.
No way.
And I just keep checking my phone and I'm like, oh yeah, this is over. And the score and the time keeps stopping over and over again. And I'm like, man, what's going on? And then after a while, I just put my phone down. I pick it back up. Like, all right, they probably won by now. And it's in overtime. And I'm like, you can't be serious right now. But then I go back and I watch the highlights and I realize that a lot of what happened in that game is a product of what you said. No defense was being played by the Mavericks at all. And quiet as it's kept, even though this game was not about defense, what the end of the game came down to was a few key defensive possessions for the Rockets. They were able to get stops when they needed them. Robert Covington did a strangely good job guarding Kristaps Porzingis at the end of the game. I think Kristaps he's got to I don't know what he's got to do to realize that he's 7'3", but I don't think he knows it yet. But I mean, Kristaps, what's the head coach name for the Mavericks? His name is Rick Carlisle.
Rick Carlisle. His name was eluding me.
Yeah.
Rick Carlisle said that yes, he knows that Kristaps Porzingis is 7 foot tall, but he said he's not going to make Kristaps Porzingis post up because Kristaps Porzingis is a great 3-point shooter, and that's what his strength is. So he's going to let him do it. And so, with that being said, if you have a 7-footer and you're going to play against the Rockets, and they're going to put a 6'6" player on you, you kind of just got to get in the post. But just off the principle, you got to just get in the post and just rack up the points.
And I know it's this sense of, it's not an efficient shot to shoot mid range and all that stuff, but man, forget that. You have legit almost a whole foot on this guy. Like, just go score on him. Like, and it was good to see because earlier on in the game, he was going back to it, and there were 3 possessions back to back where he posted up and he scored. And I was like, all right, they can do this all game, they can win easily. And it's like he just went away from it. It was like it's just not what he was comfortable doing, and he stopped doing it. But go ahead. I'll just say one more thing about this game is James Harden is utterly ridiculous. Like we're going once he retires or once he stops playing this way, we're gonna look back and we're gonna be like, this guy was probably, if not the greatest, one of the greatest scorers to ever play the game of basketball. Like it's crazy the ways he can score and like how many moves he has in his repertoire, how well he executes those moves, how fluid he is. It's really amazing to watch. But James Harden is ridiculous.
Like I've been subscribed to the Harden fan club since Chris Paul went there, and I've been a firm believer in his ability to lead the Rockets and just I believe in him as a scorer, and I believe him as a competent NBA player. We talked about at the beginning of the podcast, who I put in my top 5. I got him in front of Giannis because of the simple fact that the guy can do everything on the offensive end. Yes, he has his deficiencies on defense, but to me he makes up for it by the simple fact that he is an entire offense on his own, being able to generate shots seemingly from out of thin air for himself. And that, to me, that's one of the most valuable things in the NBA, being able to create your own shot. And he can do that at any moment, at any given time, and generate points for his team. With that being said, I do agree. I think one day we'll look back and we'll realize just how special he was. But let me ask you this. What made you pick the Mavericks to win this game to begin with? Like, what gave you that confidence to pick them going into this matchup?
All right, so truth moment, I picked them because they were underdog, get more money, bet on the underdog. But also, if they were more of an underdog than I feel like the betting odds should have shown. Like, I felt like the game was going to be close just off the fact that they had Kristaps and they should have had an automatic easy 2 points if the game got close at the end. But I mean, I felt like it was worth the risk because I had to risk like the Spurs and the Kings was an underdog. Like the Spurs were the underdog in their game, and I was like, it's no way Greg Popovich is gonna go into the bubble and lose the first game in the bubble. But like, it's just stuff like that where I'm like, I feel like they should have won those games, and if I feel like the betting, just like I chose the Clippers, even though Trez and Lou Williams weren't playing, they were like a huge underdog, not huge, but they were pretty big underdogs.
Yeah, that's
the Lakers, and I was like, but I was like, they shouldn't have been that much of one. So I picked them. Probably shouldn't have, but but like I just feel like the Mavs have a good enough team to where they can beat a team like the Rockets if they can just get a few stops. But they just literally could not get anything.
I'm trying to think who's supposed to be like their best perimeter defender. I'm not exactly sure who that's supposed to be. I guess maybe Tim Hardaway Jr., maybe DeLon Wright. I don't know. But Trey Burke went off in this game.
That's what you're relying on. Yeah.
Like, that's what you're relying on. You're not going to make it too far. Trey Burke went off. He had 31 points out of nowhere. He shot 8 for 10 from 3. Not Porzingis, but Luka Doncic struggled. He shot 11 for 27 from the field. Wasn't his best night. Probably the first time I've seen like Twitter collectively like make fun and like dog him. I ain't never really seen collective Luka slander. The Mavericks, they have the number 1 offense in the league, but I think they have like the number 29. It's like 28th to 30th offense in the clutch, which is it's ridiculously bad. Could you see the Mavs actually going to the playoffs and having a 7-game series against anybody and winning? Like just
what's the do you know their seeding right now? What are they?
They're currently the 7th seed, so they're gonna have to face they'll end up facing either the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Jazz, or maybe even probably them. No, those are the teams most likely to get the 2nd seed right now.
Maybe the Jazz. I want to say the Nuggets, but I really like the Nuggets. But I mean, I can't see them. I really can't, because in the playoffs, the intensity ratchets up. They can't guard anybody, and that really hurts you in the postseason.
Yes.
So it will be tough, but at best, maybe the Jazz.
Because there are going to be times where you're going to need to get a stop, and if you don't have a guy on the team that can get stops, well, that's just that's the end of the story for you and your boy.
Exactly.
I think that they could. I can see them I doubt the Jazz hit the number 2 seed at this point. How they look against the Pelicans and how they looked against the Thunder, who completely obliterated them off the court the other day. So the guy.
Okay. So go ahead.
Go ahead. I was
about to say. So I have a question for you. After seeing James Harden and the Rockets play like this, have your predictions what were your predictions for them, and have they changed?
My overall prediction for them going into the year, I wasn't as high on them as Jarquez. Well, I think Jarquez projected them to be like the number 1 seed, number 2 seed coming into this year because they added Westbrook. I think I projected them to be like number 4. I knew they'd be a really good team with Westbrook and Harden. That was going to be a dynamic duo. My expectations for them, it's been kind of up in the. I feel like they're a team that could easily get. I feel like they're like the biggest dark horse to get to the finals. Like they have the potential to upset and beat the Lakers, the Clippers. I could realistically see them beating either one. I thought that for at least up until they got rid of Clint Capella. Once they got rid of Clint Capella, it's just so hard for me to see them beating the Lakers with no size.
Yeah,
I can't really picture it. It's gonna be hard for them It's gonna be hard for the Lakers to guard Russ and Harden now that they don't have Avery Bradley. Like who you stick on those two, but it doesn't really matter if AD is gonna grab every single rebound and just dominate all game long. Like it's a classic case of can you outshoot and make up for the twos you're giving up, and I don't know.
And that same logic I feel like would also apply if they were to meet a team like the Nuggets in the first round. Like, how are you gonna stop a lineup of Michael Porter Jr., Bobo,
Jeremy
Jeremy Grant. Then you got Jokic. Like, what could they do? Like, I mean, maybe they could outscore them. Like, maybe they could just run them up and down the court. But I mean, the niggas got shooters too. So I mean, like, I mean, if they're gonna have a ridiculously hot night to like just like they had the other night, it's gonna take James Harden to have a night like that every single night for them to beat somebody who's actually a quality team who can get a stop if needed.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The small ball, I'm still trying to get a feel for it. It was kind of stalling towards the end of the regular season. The regular season back in March, they lost like 5 straight games. They lost to the Hornets, the Knicks, the Clippers beat them, and then somebody else beat them right before the season closed. And it seemed like they were running out of steam. This system is so dependent on PJ Tucker to be on his A game every single game. I just don't like that. It makes me nervous. It makes me nervous to think that it's like something where if he were to get hurt or if he's like to get, if he just not to be up to snuff, and that just completely destroys the system of basketball they're trying to uphold. And it's a very fragile thing to play with. I'm not confident in them, but I'm also scared of them as a Clipper fan.
Exactly, like because any given night, like you got 2 guys who can go off any night.
Yeah, they're the ultimate wild card. I can't really think of another team in recent memory where I was like, I can see them going to the finals, and also I can see them losing in the first round. I can't think of another team like that.
As a betting man, I would put money on the Rockets just because if they do make it, there will be a huge return on investment. But I gotta stop betting. So
yeah, you sound like you got a prom, Cam. I ain't gonna hold you. If that's your thing, that's your thing. So I think we can't go any further without talking about the Pelicans. I think we got to talk about them for a second. So the Pelicans, they were 3.5 games back of the 8th seed, just like the Trailblazers. A lot of people felt like they had a pretty easy schedule ahead of them to get them into the playoffs. Granted, they had to get past the Jazz, and the Clippers first was probably their 2 hardest games. I think the rest of the games are going to be a little bit easier with games against the Grizzlies. They might have 2 games against the Grizzlies. I'm not sure. But they just don't look like a team that's going to steal anybody's spot. They look like a team that should have stayed at the house, in all honesty. Mm-hmm. They competed pretty well against the Jazz. But then they were actually up on the Jazz, and then they just let their lead just dwindle in the fourth quarter and just completely lost it in the clutch. And then you turn around and you play against not the Lakers, but the Clippers after losing like that, and you're
down 30 at half.
Yeah, you just give up in the second half. Like, guys were just walking up the court. Like, they weren't even trying on defense. And I'm like, this is the team that everybody wanted to make the playoff format. Mm-hmm. This is the team we want to see play against the Lakers. No, I want to see a team that's actually going to put some fight in. I don't want a team that's going to get slapped by the Lakers and just say, all right, y'all, that's it. We done. So I'd rather see Ja Morant, who is a warrior, or Damian Lillard, give his all from beginning to end. I'd rather see them guys get the AC. I don't want the Pelicans in there at all. Especially if Zion's gonna be playing bursts of minutes.
Exactly. And so what's interesting about this is that I will say this: I'm a huge Zion fan, but I'm an even bigger Phoenix Suns fan. I like Zion a lot. I would have loved to see us draft him, but we didn't get the opportunity to. But however, I said all that to say, I feel like as a fan right now, like even as a neutral fan, if I wasn't a Suns fan, I would much rather watch us play because we're playing with more fire in the bubble than the Pelicans are playing with. Like, it literally looks like nobody on the Pelicans wants to be there sometimes. And it's ridiculous because like you said, and like other people have said, this bubble has been set up for them, like quote unquote. I mean, I don't know how true it is. I honestly think they just want to get the season done. I think the Pelicans having the easiest schedule left and, having favorable matchups in the bubble is just the way the schedule worked out.
Yeah, coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. But it's crazy that all that happened for them in their favor, and then they get there, and for some reason Zion is on this minutes restriction, and he can only play in short spurts. Like I honestly, if he had been on the court at the end of that game, the Pelicans win that game. And if they win that game, maybe they don't go into the Clippers game so sluggish. Like, it's just stuff like that. And it's like, do y'all really even want to be here? Honestly, it looks like they have their sights set on next season. And at this point, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, why not take this opportunity, get this young team to the playoffs, give them an opportunity to play a team that they probably can't beat, but maybe get a game off of them and feel what their playoff atmosphere is really like.
I think it's just like management. They're just more invested in Zion health, which I can't blame them for it. I think Zion showed up to the bubble like the day before game started, and that's why he's on a minute restriction, I think they said. But with that being said, if you came here to tiptoe, and what was the reason of coming? Like if you're gonna tiptoe around being here, your team is gonna give their all. If you had your eyes set on next season, then you just shouldn't have came to the bubble. That's all. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Like that's been one less team that could possibly expose somebody to the coronavirus. So Pelicans, I'm disappointed in you. Please just do better from here on out. I don't know. I have no other words for them.
And it's interesting. I guess we can kind of wrap up here, but I think it's interesting because sometimes I can't tell if Zion is actually frustrated or if he's just kind of okay with this, because a lot of the times, if I'm a player like Zion, I'm doing everything I can. I might even go to the media and say, hey, I wanted to play, but they won't let me. Like if I'm him, I would have rather kind of get a bad name and been able to play and be out there for my team than to sit back and, be this person who's supposed to make everybody happy. Because if I'm him, I want to be out there. I want to give all I can. Now, granted, him doing that has led to a few injuries, but I mean, you didn't get him to sit him on the bench. And how long are you going to do this?
He does look a little chunky right now, but that's something else I was telling somebody the other day. They're being careful, but how long do you be careful? How long before you just let him turn loose? He's always going to be this massively oversized person for his height. The injury risk is never going to go away. He's always going to be like this. So it's just turn him loose at this point. Yeah. All right. So my bad. You got no thought?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was going to tell you going on to another game that happened that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about the Pacers versus the 76ers. TJ Warren dropped a 50 ball, 53 points, 9 made 3-pointers, 69%. That's nasty.
It's real nasty.
And B put up a crazy stat line, putting up 40 and 20 in a loss in regulation to the Pacers. And there was some drama. There was definitely some drama in this game. Jordan B had some words with Shake Milton, which led Shake Milton getting visibly angry on the sidelines. There was some plays where Shake Milton and Jordan B just didn't try because they were upset with what had transpired, a possession earlier. Man, I don't know what to take away from this game because, you had guys like Miles Turner foul out and Mr. Sabonis, and this is Oladipo's first game. So I think the only thing you can take away from this, from the Pacers standpoint, is they're a good team. They're not going to stop. But no matter what kind of obstacles come their way, they're going to compete and find a way to win a game, and you have to respect that. I don't think TJ Warren is some world beater now. I don't think he's just going to be next game he's going to drop 40. My prediction is TJ Warren won't even get 30 next game. I think that's pretty safe. Safe bet. But that being said, it's kind of nuts that this team is supposed to have Joel Embiid, who's a crazy defender, and Ben Simmons, who people have been propped up as possible first team all defense, and this perimeter player just goes off.
Yep.
For 52. Matter of fact, I tuned into the end of that game, and TJ Warren was taking threes wide open. He has 47 points, and he's wide open. Yeah. So it kind of blew my mind to see somebody that who's been killing your team and just continues to get wide open. How do you feel about the 76ers after watching this performance, and do you think they have any chance whatsoever of making any noise in the bubble?
I want to chalk this up to what I want to do. I'm always cautiously optimistic about the 76ers just because the personnel that they have is unique, and I love to see it. Kind of reminds me of the Nuggets. Just ridiculously tall lineup, a lot of players who could be really good and can be really good on any given night. But I'm gonna chalk this up to Ben Simmons' first time being at the power forward, and that's what they've been trying to do at the bubble. He's supposed to be only playing power forward, so we'll say that this is just an adjusting period. And also the Pacers, like, you know, we can't take anything away from the Pacers. They are a good team, very well coached team, a lot of talent on that roster. But honestly, like I'm almost ready to hop off the 76ers hype train. Like like I said, I'm always optimistic about it, but it's like we've given the fans time and time and time again to show us that. I mean, if I were a 76ers fan, we've had time and time and time again for y'all to show us what y'all can be at full potential. And we continue to get slapped in the face every time we get happy. Like, it's frustrating. But I like the team. Do I see them making any real noise? No, because it seems like they either may not be well coached or they just can't play well as a whole. Looks like the locker room might be out of control with, you know, Shake Milton and your star player going at it, a person who isn't even I won't say a vital piece, but maybe not even a top 5 talent on the team. Them going back and forth. But, you know, it's crazy because I really like this team, but they just can't seem to get it together.
I don't think they're well coached. I don't think Brett Brown is doing. I think he's doing the best he can, but the best he can isn't good enough for this Sixer team. I'm ready to jump off his bandwagon. I'm a big Joel Embiid believer because he went to Kansas, and I'm a big Kansas fan. And just the fact he's an extraordinary talent, as you saw by that stat line, 40 and 20, ridiculous stat line, 65% shooting at that.
And I think the last time I saw this thing, and it was like the last time that happened was when Elgin Baylor played Wilt Chamberlain or something like that.
That's insane. Like, do you think how old them two are? And like last time that happened,
like 1960s type stuff.
Like, yeah, like some stat line, like, man, what the hell are they doing back then? Like, that's as you look at this game and you see now, and like he was doing this against Miles Turner, like he was, you know, slow roasting him on an open fire on the offensive end. But the problem with this team is that they aren't well coached and they just don't know. They don't know who they are. We are. I've been talking about how intense these games feel because everybody knows that the playoffs are right around the corner. You got teams fighting for a playoff spot. You got teams fighting for playoff position. And you got teams fighting just to get, like the Lakers who have their things wrapped up, Bucks who got things wrapped up. They're fighting just to get into playoff form. And then you got the 76ers just figuring out how to play their players together. They have zero clue who should be the point guard. They got Shea Milton starting at point, but then your backcourt only takes 5 combined shots the entire game. Then you got, Ben trying to figure out his new role as power forward. It's too many question marks for this team for my liking heading into the playoffs. I think I'm all out on the Sixers, man. I think this is it.
Yeah. I think we can both agree on that. Like, I just have kind of given up on the bubble stuff and maybe next season. But I think they have a lot of decisions to make moving forward in the off season. Like, do you trade one of the guys? Do you regret giving Al Horford and Tobias Harris these big contracts? There's something that needs to be done, obviously, with this team because it's too much talent for them not to maximize it, and it hasn't been maximized yet. And maybe it's a coaching change or something. But I think what they'll do is try a coaching change first, and if that doesn't work, then they're going to look towards moving one of these guys in the future, one of the big 2 players.
Brett Brown will be gone after this season. This is it. This is it. Word to Michael Jackson. There's no more Brett Brown. He's been done. They're not going to give away Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons. They're still too young to just throw them away for anything. But like I said, they will get rid of Brett before they get rid of Ben. I agree. Yeah. But you talk about those massive contracts. Let me just tell you about what those massive contracts did for them. Tobias Harris had 30 points, but he took 29 shots.
Oh, God.
He shot 12 for 29 in that game. Then you had Al Horford, who now comes off the bench, and he gives you 10 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and he is a negative 26 on the night. And as you said, he's making $100 million. He's on a $100 million contract, and that's what he gives you off the bench: 10 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. The Sixers need to fire a lot of people. They got Elton Brand for fixing his team and these dumbass contracts and not getting a better coach in. Like, there's a lot of people who deserve blame on this team, and it's disappointing because it's Ben and Embiid are too talented to be just going through this, this. But it is what it is at this point.
Yeah. I don't know what I was going to say, Carl. I lost my thought.
It happens to the best of us, but that's all I got. Cam, you have any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
The only thing that I've been wanting to say is that I really like I kind of been alluding to this all episode, but I really like the Denver Nuggets. I like the way they've built their team. And and people keep saying every year, the Nuggets are too young. Like there's been an excuse for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be upset at all if the Nuggets ended up breaking through to the conference finals. I don't know if I can see actually realistically seeing it happen, but I would not be upset at all if they were able to break through. Like the style of basketball that they play with the ball movement, running through Jokic in the high post. All the big guys that they have, they can do a lot of different things. It's amazing. I really like the team. If I were general manager and I was offered to be the general manager of any team, I would take the Nuggets right now. That's how much I like their talent and like the players that they have.
The jumbo ball experiment, it works seemingly. It works for the most part, but there's still a lot of flaws in it, like defensive wise, as well as them turning the ball over a lot when Jokic is forced to be the point guard on the team. Gary Harris and Jamal Murray are the key to that team. They're both banged up right now, and they're not playing. Hence why they got smoked by the Heat the other day.
Yeah.
It's all dependent on Jamal and Gary making that leap. They're both very small guards, so they're going to struggle against the Lakers if they had to play against the Lakers, and they're going to struggle against the Clippers if you sit Kawhi and PG on those boys. It could be that's all she wrote. I agree that our talented young group of players is a very interesting cast of players when you think about young players, like the skill set of these guys. But I think they're around the age now where they're not too young anymore. They're just not as experienced as other guys.
Yeah.
They've gotten good, valuable experiences last year making it into the playoffs. So I think that might not be too big of an issue. I think their main problem to just be their guard play might not be up to snuff.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's all I got. Cam, if you don't have anything else.
Nah, I'm good.
All right, like I said,
basketball talk to me. Now I'm just actually gonna turn the TV on and watch some basketball.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch this. I think Celtics and Blazers are on right now. Definitely gotta watch that.
Yeah.
See what the Blazers talking about. But I appreciate you coming on, Cam. This has been very fun.
Sure.
We had Brandon on earlier, but he had to step away. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pop Up Demand Podcast. Tune in next week for another episode of your favorite podcast. See you then.